In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. It is undoubtedly no news to you that we live in a so-called secular and might be called materialistic culture, and that this always has to be taken into account in our contemplation and our meditations of the various injunctions of the Gnosis. And today we have in our Gospel a very important passage from the Gospel of Thomas, which I think at all times and under all circumstances is worthy of a great deal of attention. Because as might be the case any time, the question is asked of the Lord Christ, well, what should we do? What shouldn't we do? How should we behave? What should we eat? What should we drink? What should we say? And as indeed is also indicated in a more brief fashion in the New Testament, he says it's much more important what comes out of your mouth than goes inside. In other words, don't be so concerned with your diet, which is a fight that I have been fighting for many decades with my fellow theosophists and various people, always indicating that these injunctions that people come up with it, you don't eat meat, I don't know, you don't eat broccoli, that's the one that I'm going to establish. It's going to be very sinful to eat broccoli, and besides that, it's unpleasant, at least to me. I never liked broccoli, and I still don't. So, there are all of these issues which in the Gospel of Thomas, the Lord goes even further in saying that do not lie. So what you don't know, that would be the further translation, what you don't know with your gnosis, don't believe and don't go by it, because all the things will be revealed before heaven. And so that there are more important things. The important thing is your consciousness, and not what you may or may not put into your body in terms of food or drink and various other externals. All the things that, this is the way one way of looking at it, of course. All of the things that pertain to your bodily selfhood, believe me, the time is coming, they are not going to be here. Why? Because your body won't be here. In other words, they are not of such great importance. They may have some temporary utility, but beyond that, they are nothing. So what matters? Obviously, your diet doesn't matter, no matter what people tell you. If you have a particular ailment and you are putting into your body things that are bad for that ailment, that's another issue. But that's a matter to be decided between you and your doctor. But so what matters is right there in the Gospel of Thomas, where Jesus says that do not lie. And so the issue is your consciousness. And within your consciousness of the quality that certainly some philosophers have spoken of before in history, probably more lately the existentialists, where I went to school at the university in Innsbruck in Austria, we had an existentialist club. Everybody wore turtleneck sweaters, and most of them wore beret. I didn't wear either of them. I mean, I wore regular clothes. But in any event, you know, that was an existentialist dictum to be authentic. And somehow a beret and a sweater of a certain kind was imagined to confer a certain authenticity, and who knows, maybe it did. But in any event, what is of course indicated here, that there is a source of truth, the aletheia of the Greeks, inside of us. But like so many of these wonderful things that the divine has planted in us, unless we call on them, they stay dormant. They stay quiet. That's the way it is. We think that, oh well, we are endowed with all of these wonderful things. We should be able to have access to them all the time. But it requires the engagement of our personality to come close to them. And in this case, we have to cultivate our own authenticity. Do not lie. And what is not authentic, don't do it and don't say it. Because it will be revealed, most likely to yourself, it will be revealed what the authentic aspect of the situation is. Because if you lead an inauthentic or only very partially authentic life, there is a reservoir of psycho-spiritual material that wants to manifest. There are all, one way of visualizing it would be you have all of these little people inside of you who say, and what about me? How come you didn't mention me? How come you are not more truthful about what is going on? And that is probably a very worthwhile question that needs to be answered in an authentic fashion. So we have perhaps been told, for good reason, that we should cultivate an honesty with other people. Those of us who have lived here for a considerable time, nobody as long as I, probably, but we know that if we are true to ourselves, then the likelihood of us being and remaining true to others, and maybe ultimately to the divine, are thereby very greatly enhanced. If we are not, that's another issue. And what we need to really worry about, if we want to worry about something, maybe that's not the right term. Worrying is sort of, they used to have, you may recall in the 60s or so, they were selling a doll. And we had one here in this place. And this doll was a worry bird. And if you took it home, it said there, right there, that it would worry for you. It was the stupidest looking bird, by the way, that I've seen in a long time. But let us say there is that kind of worrying which is really without much utility. But let us say, so that is not the right expression. But what I think is the important matter is that as to whether we have the determination and ultimately the skill to bring forth what is truly within ourselves. Because there is the seed of truth. We may not think so. Maybe we have told a few fibs in our lives, beginning in childhood, said things that weren't exactly true. It can be fun. especially if people believe you're balderdash, then it's really, and I think those are the people who become politicians, Enough said. Sapientiae sat, But let's say we need to keep in mind that we have within us the capacity for a real truth. And when we touch that truth in various ways in our lives, I assure you, we are going to have a much more rich, a much more happy, a much more productive life, at least for a while with that. It is one of the greatest blessings we can confer upon ourselves is to be truthful with ourselves and with others. And of course the underlying rationality being that if we haven't learned to be truthful with ourselves, the likelihood is not very great that we are going to be truthful with anybody else either. So it's really, it's a sort of it's a matter of, I can't express it in another way at this moment, it's a matter of brushing away the cobwebs that stand in front of us and that veil our sight from the important things that we ought to recognize. And just like cobwebs, which are really, I grew up in a part of rural Hungary where the presence of spiders was very plentiful. And so the spider webs were everywhere. And so, spider webs are not very solid construction. Spiders are terrific architects. They really, build elaborate webs. But the webs are made in order to catch flies and things like that, so they are not very strong. It's a little bit like that. It's like like our mind becomes a repository of spider webs, and we need to chase these webs away. We want to come to something that is beyond the web and that is concealed by the web, and there is the truth. So there, that which is authentic, which as the very word, if I'm a sort of a stickler for analysis of languages, and what we need to keep in mind that we need to break through certain barriers, whether they are of the flimsy nature of a spider web or otherwise, in order to get to something authentic. Because we are great manufacturers of ultimately useless disguises. Our mind makes up things and says, here, so put this over there. And then we have to say, no, I want to go deeper. And if we do that, and it sort of becomes a habit, then I think that we are beginning to lead the authentic life, which is something that has reality, has substance of great importance of its own. And where does that substance come from? Well, it comes from the divine. So it is one way really to know God, is to be truthful and to look for the truth, look for the often hidden authenticity in life. And when we come to recognize that, that kind of a truth-seeking and truth-finding carries its own reward. I assure you that when you're able to do that a number of times, it really makes you feel good. It'll make you feel better than any pill that I know, and I, like so many people in our cultures, am a devoted pill popper. So, it's not that I'm against pills. Now, people who become pills, that's something else. But on the whole, when this program of authenticity arises within us, it brushes away the need for the naturally present and yet difficult prevarication of the psyche. Because we are great storytellers. And some of the stories that we come up with are probably quite nice and quite useful. But on the whole, we must be able to reach beyond that and to reach to the bedrock of reality, which is within us. Why? Because that bedrock of reality is also the substance of divinity within us. In other words, if I reach the truth within me, I have touched the hand of the divine. I am now at the extension of the divine truth, because the truth is one, whether it is inside of us or whether it is somewhere else. So this is extremely important, and that is why I think it's so wonderful that in the Gospel of Thomas, unlike maybe in some other scriptural references, the emphasis is placed on that authenticity. All things on the heaven will be revealed. So what are you concealing? Who are you fooling? Well, you are trying to fool yourself, and ultimately it doesn't work terribly well. So maybe one of the nice mottos for us in life would be no fooling. No fooling. We'll tell it as it is. We'll bring forth from within ourselves what is authentic there, and that we feel is true, and then we go with that. And so that really can be the one of the great steps toward union with the divine within us, the Christ in us, the hope of glory that St. Paul speaks about, and which is really the foundation of all the mystical endeavors in the world. Because everybody from Buddhism with its teaching of the Buddha nature, with Hinduism with its teaching of Atman and many, many other religions, in some fashion the recognition is there. What you are really seeking is within you. If you find that which is within you, then that will connect you right away with a greater reality. Because reality calls to reality, truth calls to truth. Goodness calls to truth. And so that when we are able to cultivate these qualities, even to some extent, then they link us up with the whole hierarchy of their kin. And that's very, very wonderful and very, very important, especially in a world that so often is really lacking in authenticity. We live in a world that is loaded with mendacity and false projections, as psychology would call it. And we have to get through that heavy layer of this stuff in order to come to the truth. And then all of a sudden, you touch something true, and it feels really different. Oh, geez, this must be important. And there are important things. We are capable of important things. In fact, if you don't mind bringing that up, albeit briefly, we live in a country that was founded on the understanding that there are very important things in the human soul, and that it should be the privilege and the duty of everyone to cultivate this. If you want to find the truth, then you have to have freedom to find the truth. And that is what the founding fathers desired. And that is, in any age, in any period of history, this is of extreme importance. We are here in order to discover the real. And the real is not in a flying saucer or things of that sort. The real is always deeply hidden and often difficult to find right within us. Nah ist und schwer zu fassen der Gott, says a German mystical poem. Near, but still difficult to grasp, is the divine. But then he also says, Hoeller, a great mystical poet, sort of a disciple of Goethe. But he says, if you seek that, then you will find it. And wherever there is danger in your life, the saving power, the helpful power approaches. So, see, it's difficult for us to realize that, even to a minor degree, that what we really seek and what we need is available to us if we go after it. Yeah? If you don't go after it, it won't be available to you. Why? Well, somebody smarter will have to answer that than me. but it is so. And so this, I think, it's a very, very important passage in the Gospel of Thomas. It says, do not lie, don't be authentic, don't disguise the truth, and then you will be all right. And the commandments and all kinds of customs and diets and things of that sort, these are substitutes that people make up so that your psyche will not weep and cry and gnash its psychic teeth for lack of truth and lack of authenticity. And so it's not that terribly difficult to work with that. You keep in your mind, I want the truth on this particular issue that I'm facing. I really want to know the reality, the truth. I don't want all kinds of other stuff. Now, come on. And if you practice that kind of thing, you will have a response. Because that is part of asking and receiving. Ask and we will receive. And one of the greatest things that we can receive is the truth about ourselves, about life, about our relationship with the divine, and our relationship with each other. And so much of these terrible things that go on in the world, all these wars and the cruelty that's going, it is all, it's very largely due to a lack of true authenticity. Because if the cruel and combative side of the human being comes to the fore, if you have some notion of the true, the good and the beautiful, then you call out for them. You say, look, that's what I want, okay? And if you really want that, and if you put that request forth into reality, it will come to you. Ask and you shall receive. And what could be a more important thing to ask for than that we shall know the truth, because it is that truth that will make us free. The prevarication, the disguise, all that sort of thing, it not only doesn't make us free, but it enslaves us. It ties us up in knots with inauthentic ideas, with inauthentic expectations, ideologies, this, that, and the other thing. Something to cut through. And we can. And we should. And with God's help and our own determined consciousness, we shall. And so may the mystery of that which hangs betwixt heaven and earth descend upon us and remain with us always.